Man, is it hard not to let Monday night change the eye line a little bit on this season.
Your imagination running away with you is not ridiculous after Monday night.
The question we want to pose on the phones, and they're wide open for you at 800-636-1067 right now on G&D. Does that Monday night win, whether it's Daniels' performance, the offense going a second straight game without punting, the fact that in a hostile environment, the Commanders put on a clinic with the football, just how they handled themselves, does any part of it change how you feel about this season, your prediction for what they're capable of win total wise this season?
Absolutely. 100%. I didn't think they had that offensive performance in them at any point in time. I didn't think you could take advantage of a bad defense. I thought they were the get right week for everybody. It's to the point where, in some big money fantasy leagues that I'm in, that I co-manage with one of my good buddies, they were one of the teams that we had listed as, let's stream a defense against them. Let's treat them the way we would treat the Giants or the Jaguars now, or the Panthers when Bryce Young was quarterback, etc., because they're not going to score very much because they're so limited. That's not the case. This offense has gotten steadily better each week. The week before was a great sort of, kind of harbinger for this, where they didn't punt, they moved up and down the field, and red zone sabotaging, but their own doing, prevented touchdowns. Well, you take away some of those sabotages, and you score a bunch of touchdowns. You never stop scoring touchdowns, apparently, if you're this offense. Now, they're not getting 38 points a week. This isn't the greatest show on turf Rams, but I didn't think they had that ceiling. I thought their ceiling was a lot lower. So egg on my face. So yeah, I have certainly upped kind of what I view as their offensive ceiling, because I've just seen it. That was tremendous. And I didn't think they'd get there all year.
I would be lying if I said Monday night has not changed how I feel about this season and what they're capable of this season. Jaden Daniels in week 1 and week 2 was basically exactly what I thought he was going to be early this year. Jaden Daniels in week 3 blew me away, which isn't to say that I didn't think he would make the throws that he made, although those are low percentage throws and they were amazing. I've always kind of, like everybody else, you watch him in college, you see the arm talent is there. You go out to one training camp practice, you can see he's immensely accurate. He's got that. It's never been a question of can he do it in terms of standing in the pocket and making throws. It's does he want to do that? What does he want to be? Does he want to be a throw first quarterback, or does he want to take off and run 16 times like he did in his first game ever? And that's kind of what I was, and still to some extent am curious about. But he can obviously do everything you need him to do with his arm. But I think week 1 and week 2, Jaden Daniels, and week 3, Jaden Daniels are two very, very different guys in terms of the decision making, running versus throwing, leaving the pocket to reset to throw versus just head down, taking off, trying to go get yards with my feet. Just a different guy. That performance coming this early in his career, maybe it ends up being an outlier in a month and it was just a fun thing. I think it has to change how you feel. That was a really special quarterbacking performance. Similarly, I was skeptical of Cliff Kingsbury. I still have questions about Kingsbury, but through a couple of weeks now, week 1 again, notwithstanding, but the majority, 2 of their 3 games, they've had all the answers offensively. They have moved the ball up and down the field. Now, the Bengals defense is terrible. The Giants defense is not particularly good. The one good defense they've played, they really struggled with. But you're going to play a lot of defenses that aren't that good. You get to play Dallas twice, as an example. A terrible matchup on paper for Washington, meaning from their perspective. I think it's a great matchup for the Commanders when they've got the football. That's 2 games that are going to be on your schedule. Just top of my head,
Right.
There are plenty more like that, right? I think you're going to be able to move the ball on the Eagles, who aren't particularly good defensively. Those are the top 2 teams in your division. I worry about Washington's defense because I don't think it's going to get a whole lot better. I just don't think they have the personnel in the secondary to be very good. The more we watch this thing, the more it becomes evident that's going to be a year-long problem.
Yeah.
I hope they'll improve. I don't know how they couldn't.
Yeah, 1 is more than 0.
They are the 8th worst defense in terms of DVOA, which basically takes a lot of stuff out of the equation to level the playing field for how you're performing. 8th worst in the DVOA stat era ever. It's just been ugly. They're the worst cover team by far in terms of EPA per play allowed in the league. So that worries me. it's not going to come as easily as it did this past week. They're going to commit penalties like they were able to avoid. That they're going to turn the ball over more than zero.
Yeah, the fumble that you recover on a miraculous play by Allegretti isn't recovered, and now all of a sudden the game is different. They've caught a couple of breaks here and there. So, yeah, things are going to equalize. I'm 100% with you.
But I think I'm actually answering two questions here. The question is, has your season thought on this team changed? What you think they're capable of, your prediction for the year? And to that, I have to say yes, it has. Because they are better offensively. The Kingsbury thing is working better than I thought. And Daniels playing the game he just did. I did not expect this early. The other question I started answering when I got off track there is, could they be really good? And I think that's a whole different thing. You see what I'm saying?
Of course I do, yeah.
Here's why they're not going to win 10, 11 games or whatever. That's different than, hey, you thought they'd go 7 and 10. Or do they have a higher ceiling than that now? And I just don't know how you could have watched Monday. Maybe it's unsustainable to some extent. I get that the Bengals are over the season and they're just not as good as everyone thought. Still, people think that they're better than they are, and I don't really get it. But it's not about the Bengals. It's about Washington. They are, Luke McCaffrey made plays. De'Ami Brown made plays. Terry McLaurin looked like he was 25 again. I mean, it was a really eye-openingly impressive performance where we saw the best of a lot of guys.
So here's this is how I'm viewing it. I know we're sort of answering ancillary questions based on the main question, but I think it's instructive. So before the season started, I think their offense is going to be a 2.5 or a 3, and the games that they win are, Jaden Daniels, miracle work, scramble 80 yards like Griffin against Minnesota, or, something kind of, you win a slugfest like they did against the Giants, beating another bad team who can't do anything on offense. And I thought their defense would be also like a 3 or 4 out of 10. Not good, but also not atrocious. Well, I was wrong on both counts. Their offense is a higher number than that, TBD where they finish, but it ain't a 2 or 3. And their defense probably isn't that good. Their defense is probably worse. It's probably a 1 or 1.5, even to sort of not even opponent dependent. So how we get to the record, how that affects things, that'll be kind of fun to find out. But to me, I'm going, my evaluation of their offense for the season now looks to be so completely dead wrong because I didn't think they had that in them. That's the part that I'm stressing here. Week 1, week 2, okay. We sort of, you could excuse each one. Okay, it's the first time they're spoon-feeding Jaden Daniels, trying to bring him along slow. Week 2, okay, the Giants stink. Week 3, I'm not saying the Bengals are good, but you don't do 38 points and you don't punt even against crappy defenses. There are plenty of bad defenses that force a punt here or there, that get more than 2 incompletions. There are plenty of defenses that over the last several seasons where Daniels would have had more incompletions than total touchdowns in that game. That offensive performance was so great, I'm going, okay, I was wrong about what I thought their offense was or could do.
Yeah, for me, it's actually 2 weeks too. Not just the one. It's the Giants game and the Bengals game from an offensive standpoint that have me ready to reassess a little bit through 3 weeks. So for myself, I never thought they were as bad offensively as you did. And I've never hated their personnel to the same extent that you do. Having said that, I wasn't high on it. Like, I didn't love it. This was not the greatest show on turf, but I really, really like the Eckler edition. He's been outstanding. I think Noah Brown is a decent enough wide receiver 2 type. The fact that he was available is a godsend. I actually think Zacchaeus, who's been very limitedly involved, De'Ami Brown can serve roles. It's not to say they're going to be good or scare anybody, but the way they use receivers, I just don't think it's going to be what they major in or care a whole lot about. It's a lot of stuff at and behind the line of scrimmage for the most part. It's going to work out. The way they've run the ball, Brian Robinson going for $130 against the Giants. The Bengals then said, okay, guess what? Brian Robinson's not going to beat us. And Washington said, cool.
No problem.
And they threw it outside. So you saw them do the thing they want to do. Then a week later, a team bow up and say, you're not going to do the thing you want to do. And Washington said, no problem. We've got another way to move the football. The fact that they've been able to zig and then zag and then zig again gives me some hope as well. So, yeah, for me, the sight line has changed. How good are they? Probably a different conversation we can have. But it would be hard-pressed, I think, to find people who shouldn't be optimistic about them maybe outkicking their coverage a little bit after a game like that Bengals game. And this is the ultimate sin as a football fan. We all know it, right? The 1 week big reaction. But that's why, to me, I go back now over what is a 3-week sample and the growth that we've seen. Let's go to the phones. 800-636-1067. There's a line open. Did Monday night, has the early part of this season changed how you feel about Washington's next 14 weeks? Let's go to Martin and Landover on Grant and Danny. Hey, Martin.
Hey, how's it going?
Great.
Barvin, but that's okay. Gentlemen, I listened to your argument your conversation, and it was making me sway my original opinion. But I'm gonna have to stick with my original opinion because I just see that I already had like a really high opinion of Jayden Daniels. He was my QB number one coming out of college. I wish I had my board in front of everybody. Like, yeah, he was the guy I wanted. So I already was like high on him. I was worried about Brandon Coleman, but he looks like he's more athletic than I thought. So they might have got a hit at left tackle. So really, I'm kind of happy about that. The interior line showing a lot of promise. I was skeptical. That was actually what I was worried about. So the offense has been exactly what I thought. It's better than I thought, but I was thinking that, the offense was going to be, pretty good. I just thought they were going to be all right. That damn defense, oh, my God.
It's bad, man.
I don't know what I'm looking at. I don't know if they're playing defense. Gap.
They're not. I can tell you they're not playing defense.
Are they playing
they're on that
gap?
side of the ball, yeah.
What are they doing? And I'm going to throw this on Dan Quinn and Joe Witt. Their weakness last year with the Cowboys was their run defense. And you have to stop the run first. You just have to. You'll take your lumps in the pass game, but you cannot get gassed. It's demoralizing. It is just hugely demoralizing.
Well, it is death by paper cut. Thanks for the call, Martin. Appreciate you. It is. Demoralizing is the perfect word. Because when you give up the big plays down the field in the secondary, like that throw to Chase, you just feel like you don't have the Billies and the Joes. Like, you know what? We don't have the athletes. We can't hang with them. It's a scene from Remember the Titans where Ryan Gosling, like the little white corner, comes up to Herman Boone and he's like, I can't play with these guys. I can't run, whatever. That's how it feels sometimes when you're getting just toasted by better wide receivers. When you're getting just torched for 7, 10, 12, 8, 5 on the ground, which has happened at times against this defense this year, and you have no answer, you're just getting bullied. And demoralizing is the perfect word for it. But they're not good at anything.
No.
It's not like, well, they take away the run and then they get beaten the pass. If you want to run, you could do that. But if you want to pass, you could also do that.
Yeah, what's on the whole menu's available to you guys. What would you like today?
How do you want to move the football?
The kitchen's open.
Short passing game? No problem. Throw it out that way. No one's going to tackle you. But if you want to go over the top of everybody back behind them near the end zone, cool. There's where you're going to throw it to. Like, what can they hang their hat on defensively right now that they do at a passable level?
They're not turning people over 1 through 3 games. They're not pressuring the quarterback. That's non-existent at this point. They're not limiting big plays.
I guess
there's nothing.
Other than week 1, I think they've tackled pretty well. Is that fair? And I thought in week 1 they did a terrible job tackling. I do think the last couple of weeks have been better. But when you're tackling people 9 yards from the line of scrimmage,
Frankie Louvu hustles and catches guys from behind.
He leads the league in the hustle physical tackle. That's true. He's got that going for him. So his answer is he doesn't feel any better because the defense is abysmal. That's fair.
Yeah, so that's kind of how I net out, right? Where I go, the offense is way better than I thought it was going to be, and the defense is worse.
But the offense being better is way more important.
To me, certainly.
But I don't just mean in terms of the future and Jayden Daniels. I'm not even saying that. I'm saying in the way of being a good football team. If you're a great offense, you have a chance to win shootouts. Like your ceiling is just naturally higher.
They just won one,
than if you're a bad offense. So in that net, it should still kind of come out in the wash in the plus, right? If the offense is better than you thought and the defense is worse than you thought, that's actually more ideal than the inverse.
That's what I would take. Yeah, if I had to pick, meaning one's going to be worse than you thought, one's going to be better, I would pick that 100%.
Josh, Upper Marlboro on Grant and Danny. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great. Doing great, fellas. Yeah, I'm incredibly optimistic for a few reasons. First, just because of the competition, both that we have faced and that we will face. I know that this is not the Bengals of years past, but guys, this is, a Super Bowl caliber team 2 out of the last 3 seasons, right? And with an incredible quarterback who still has a lot of punch to him and some of the best receivers in the league. And, yes, they did torch us, but we kind of hung in. And I do want to say, I feel like St. Juste is just playing with – I was at the home game, obviously watched Monday night really closely. He's playing with a little, punch. I don't know. He's got a little, vigor to him that is I know he's getting beat, but he's hanging in there a little bit more than I've seen before. And I know that's really squishy. But Would love for you guys to react to that. But also just our competition moving forward. We should really win 5 of the next 6 games, right? I mean, they're against some either absolute scrubs or very, very beatable teams in the Browns and the Panthers and the Bears and the Giants and in the Steelers. And so the momentum coming out of that, if we've already banked 7 games heading into the more difficult part of our season, that's pretty incredible. So I think for me, it's more about the competition, playing to the level of a team like the Bengals, and then, the relatively easy competition in front of us.
Appreciate
Thank
you,
you, dude.
Josh. See, but his answer there tells you he feels a lot better
Yeah, without a doubt,
after
right?
Monday, because he's now saying, look at the schedule, look who they're playing. They're playing a bunch of scrubs. Where after week 1, if we looked at that schedule, Washington is not going to play with or not on the same level, let's say, as Pittsburgh, right? Looking at just bang through them. This Cardinals game, I now give them a really good chance to win.
They got a puncher's chance in that one.
I would go above that. I mean, to me, it'll be disappointing if they don't win this weekend after what they just did against Cincinnati, because the Cardinals are not a playoff team. They're just a meh NFC team. They're a pain in the butt to play. They play hard, but nobody thought coming into the year they're more than a 7 or so win team. The Browns don't look very good. The Ravens are off to a bad start. The Panthers stink. The Bears stink. The Giants stink. That's the schedule all the way until Pittsburgh, which is like, in November, essentially. So after week 1, when we looked at that, we're going, Cleveland's probably better, but it's a toss-up. Carolina's really bad, but can Washington take anyone for
Right.
granted?
They're doing that to us right now
Yeah,
in
the-
Carolina radio.
The
Yeah.
Ravens are going to bully them. And the idea now that we could look at it and go, oh, well, the Commanders should beat the Cardinals. There's no reason to lose to the Browns at home. You can maybe hang with Baltimore. You got to beat Carolina, Chicago. That answers the question that people just now view this thing so much differently, which is scary because it was only the one game.
Mm-hmm.
I guess you could say it's 2 wins, but that's what happens in this league. When you haven't felt a loss and been humbled in like 15, 18, 19 days, you just start thinking crazy. But that's where we are now.
Yeah, but it's also, again, that ceiling makes nobody's saying now maybe the occasional, diehard or lunatic, whatever you want to call it, is going, this is who they are now, 38 points a week, doesn't matter the defense, book it. I think that's ludicrous. But to me, I didn't think they had that performance in them. So the average of the previous 3 games is a plus offense, right? That's 1 bad in Tampa, 1 solid, although,
I wouldn't even say good.
You would
They
say
just
good.
didn't finish, but they didn't
Yeah,
punt.
so I'd say plus. And then 1 incredible. So that's overall way, 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 way better than expectations.
Totally.
So yeah, so boom goes the dynamite.
Another way to say it is, if they play every game like the last game, which is sometimes I think how you view it as, just going through a schedule, like what you just saw. If they play every game like the Tampa game, they're a 4-13 team. If they play every game like the Giants game, they're a 6-11 team. If they play every game like the Bengals game, they're a 13-4 or a 14-3 team. Seriously, like that's what we're talking about here. Like the nearly perfect offensive performance with the quarterback playing at an MVP level every single week, you go 13-4, 12-5. So now you're looking at it through the lens of, well, what if they got the Bengals game in the bag? Why didn't they just pack that, take it to Arizona? Now you beat them by 10.
Let's do that, yeah.
800-636-1067 is the number. Does how Washington played against Cincinnati change how you feel about this team, yes or no? Or is that dangerous? Because lest we forget, they were awful in week 1. And then in week 2, they survived a pretty bad Giants team, largely because the Giants had an injury to their kicker. They could easily have been 0-2, having played 1 pretty good team and 1 bad team. Now we're looking at this thing after 2 straight wins with a 40-point nearly victory over the Bengals. And it feels like we're starting to, as a fan base, grow in confidence.